On March the 12th, 2026, the global media landscape didn't just shift, it exploded. The catalyst was a single book titled Betrayal, authored by the relentless investigative titan Tom Bower. Within hours of hitting the shelves, the allegations inside sent the Invictus Games Foundation into a state of total paralysis. The core of the scandal is a series of forensic accounts alleging that funds meant for the rehabilitation of wounded veterans were systematically diverted to finance a lifestyle of private jets and five-star luxury suites for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry and Meghan's response was swift and loud. Their representatives released a blistering statement, calling the book nothing more than a deranged conspiracy and a venomful fabrication designed to profit from character assassination. But for those who understand the high-stakes world of international law and corporate reputation, their reaction contained a strategic void. They were shouting in the press, but they remained absolutely silent in the courtroom. To understand why this silence is so deafening, we have to look at the man holding the pen. For 4 decades, Tom Bower has been the ultimate predator of the billionaire class. He has faced off against titans like Richard Branson and Conrad Black in court and emerged victorious every single time. He doesn't just write stories, he builds cases. When a Sussex spokesperson reportedly told an internal team member, "We will crush these lies in the court of public opinion," they were missing the point. In the corporate world, if someone accuses you of financial mismanagement and you don't sue for libel, you are essentially signaling that the accuser has the receipts. Before we dive into the specific flight manifest that triggered this investigation, please take a moment to support the channel. If you appreciate these deep dive audits into royal transparency, hit the like button, subscribe to the Royal Audit, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe a charity's primary budget should ever cover private security for its founders? We read every single perspective. The strategic helplessness of the Sussexes became undeniable by the end of March 2026. They knew that a discovery process in a courtroom would force them to open their private books to the world. A source close to the couple reportedly whispered to a close associate, "They can't sue him because Bower has the paper trail, and he's just waiting for them to walk into his trap." Their denial was a roar, but their legal standing was a whisper. But a biography is still just a collection of words. The real danger for Harry does not lie in what Tom Bower alleges. The true risk is buried in what Harry himself signed off on in a confidential government filing. Stay with me until the 18-minute mark, because right now, we are going to open the secret financial report from the United Kingdom Charity Commission. Within these pages, we have witnessed a fundamental error, so amateur that not even a junior intern would dare to commit it. An official legal document that fails to even identify its own entity correctly. This is the moment the optics manufacturing machine finally faced a checkmate it couldn't spin. The math of morality has officially failed. When the final ledgers for the Vancouver 2025 Games were closed, the figures revealed a discrepancy so vast it borders on the surreal. The core strategic error made by Harry and Meghan was the belief that they could transform a day of veteran rehabilitation into a high-fashion runway, a concept known as optics manufacturing. But in doing so, they triggered a wave of lifestyle inflation that the Foundation's books simply cannot sustain. Let's look at the raw data. The total cost for the 2025 summit reached 63.2 million Canadian dollars. When you divide that by the 534 athletes who actually competed, the cost per veteran reaches a staggering $118,352. To put that into perspective, the Warrior Games in the United States operates its entire annual program for approximately $2 million. The German model for veteran support manages a similar output for just $750 per person. This means the Invictus model is currently 150 times more expensive than its global counterparts. The question the public keeps asking is, where is the money going? The Foundation frequently counters criticism by claiming that 92% of its budget is spent on charitable activities. But for the audience watching at home, especially those who understand the nuances of corporate transparency, there is a psychological trap hidden in those words. Under United Kingdom legal definitions, charitable activity is an incredibly broad term. It allows the Foundation to categorize massive stage builds, complex logistics, and even the high-profile opening concert featuring Katy Perry as direct charitable spending. To the casual observer, it looks like help for the heroes. To an auditor, it looks like a multi-million-dollar set for a personal branding production. The most heartbreaking evidence of this cruelty is found in the contrast between the patrons and the participants. While the budget allowed for an elite private security detail and a luxury wardrobe for the Duchess that could fund an entire clinic, the veterans themselves were often left to fend for themselves. Reports have surfaced that Nigerian veterans, who may earn an average of just $100 a month in their home country, were expected to secure their own airfare and hotel accommodations to attend the games. One staffer reportedly recalled a moment of tension during the planning phase, stating, "We were discussing the budget for the VIP hospitality suites, while simultaneously being told there were no funds to subsidize the travel for the African delegations." When the discrepancy was pointed out, the response from the leadership was reportedly focused on the global reach and visibility that the VIP presence would bring. It is a philosophy of bling over rehabilitation, where the veterans are used as the backdrop for a story about celebrity influence. This isn't just mismanagement. It's a fundamental betrayal of the mission's original intent. The foundation has become an engine for lifestyle inflation, where the cost of the optics has far outpaced the value of the actual service. A price tag that is 150 times higher than the global standard, all in the name of empathy. But if the figure of $118,000 for a 9-day appearance by the Sussexes leaves you stunned, then prepare yourself for what is coming next. Because in the next 60 seconds, I am going to strip back the layers of the cross-border money pipeline where public taxpayer funds disappear behind a wall of black ink, only to flow directly into a private account in London. The hallmark of elitist arrogance is the assumption that the public only consumes what is served in glossy press releases and high-definition documentaries. Harry and Meghan have operated under the belief that as long as the optics are controlled, the underlying architecture of their empire remains beyond scrutiny. But this week, that architecture didn't just crack, it suffered a complete identity failure. We are looking at a level of administrative sloppiness that suggests a governance structure in total disarray. On February the 14th, 2026, after taking every possible extension allowed by the law, the Invictus Foundation finally submitted its 2024 financial report to the United Kingdom Charity Commission. The report was already 2 years behind schedule, a delay that had already begun to trigger alarms within the charitable sector. When financial expert Rachel Maxwell downloaded the documents to perform a standard audit, she uncovered a detail so shocking it calls into question the very legality of the foundation's operations. On the cover page of this official filing, the company registration number, the unique digital fingerprint of any legal entity in the United Kingdom, was clearly printed. However, when Maxwell turned to the official balance sheet several pages later, the registration number listed there was entirely different. In the eyes of the law, this is not a simple typo or a clerical error. In the United Kingdom, a registration number defines a specific legal entity. When a document carries 2 different numbers, it essentially claims to be 2 different companies at the same time. This raises a terrifying question for the auditors. Who is actually responsible for the millions of dollars flowing through these accounts? If the assets are listed under one entity, but the legal signature belongs to another, the money is effectively floating in a legal vacuum. The implications for the Board of Trustees are catastrophic. These are the individuals who signed off on the document, certifying its accuracy under penalty of law. One senior trustee was reportedly overheard during a panicked conference call on the evening of the leak, asking, "How did we let a document with 2 different registration numbers leave the office?" The reply from the legal team was reportedly a chilling silence. By signing that document, every trustee has now exposed themselves to personal legal liability for a filing that is, by definition, fraudulent. The public reaction was not a slow burn. It was an instantaneous explosion of digital forensic activity. As the discrepancy began to go viral among financial transparency groups, the foundation's response was not to issue a clarification, but to go dark. At exactly 2100 hours on the night of the discovery, the official Invictus website suffered a total system collapse. It didn't just slow down. The servers were pulled offline. Insiders suggest this wasn't a technical glitch caused by high traffic. It was a deliberate, tactical blackout. One digital security consultant noted that the kill switch was likely pulled to prevent more people from downloading the conflicting files while the team scrambled to find a way to explain the unexplainable. For 3 hours, the mission for veterans was replaced by a blank screen and a 404 error. An international organization of this scale cannot even coordinate its own identity on a legal filing. This error is so fundamental that it suggests the Sussexes have been operating without a functioning compliance department for over 24 months. But the identity crisis is only the surface. Behind that website blackout, a much more desperate panic was taking hold. Because while the public was staring at a blank website, the auditors were beginning to trace exactly where the money from those conflicting registration numbers was being sent. And what they found was a trail leading straight into the black ink wall of the Vancouver contracts. The digital blackout of the Invictus website at 2100 hours was not just a technical reboot. It was a scorched earth operation. When the servers finally flickered back to life at 0400 hours on February the 15th, 2026, the era of open transparency was over. In its place, the Sussexes erected a digital fortress. To access any of the financial filings, users were now redirected to a high-security Dropbox wall that required a digital signature and government-issued identification. This move sent a clear signal to every financial investigator in the world. The Sussexes were no longer sharing information. They were tracking who was looking for it. One digital privacy expert reportedly remarked during a late-night briefing, "They aren't protecting the veterans' data. They are building a list of people who are getting too close to the truth." This is the core strategic error of Harry and Meghan treating public accountability as a security threat. The reason for this panic lies in what we call the money matrix. The investigation has traced 30 million Canadian dollars in public funds that were supposed to support the Vancouver Whistler Games. However, instead of a direct transfer to the event, the money took a detour through a middleman, a for-profit entity called the Vancouver Whistler Games Corporation. This corporation's primary function, it seems, was to facilitate a massive licensing fee that flowed back to Prince Harry's private charity in the United Kingdom. The true nature of this fee is buried in the now infamous Appendix A of the government contract. When the document was finally obtained through a Freedom of Information request, it was a haunting sight for transparency advocates. The entire page was a blacked-out appendix, every dollar amount, every clause, and every recipient was obscured by heavy black ink. A senior Treasury official was overheard during an emergency meeting in early 2026, stating, "We are paying for the brand, but we aren't allowed to see the price tag. It's a blank check written in public blood." But the matrix extends across the Atlantic. Hidden within the 2023 fiscal report was a payment of £29,800 to a private United States-based entity called Dunes LLC. There was no description of the services provided, no list of owners, and no physical address beyond a registered agent in Delaware, a notorious tax haven. Even more suspicious was the 2024 filing, where the balance for Dunes LLC suddenly dropped to zero. The entity vanished from the books as quickly as it appeared. When asked by international journalists if Dunes LLC was a shell company used to funnel charitable funds into their private Montecito accounts, the Sussexes legal team issued a flat refusal to comment. This refusal speaks louder than any statement. In the world of corporate finance, an unexplained payment to a Delaware LLC that subsequently disappears is a textbook red flag for what auditors call capital leakage. Harry and Meghan believe that by creating a labyrinth of international corporations, they could obscure the fact that they are profiting from a mission funded by taxpayers and donors. They calculated that the complexity of the money matrix would discourage anyone from following the trail. They were wrong. The paper trail is no longer just a theory. It is a map of systematic diversion. A blacked-out contract, a scrubbed server, and a ghost company named Dunes LLC. The cash flow is being frozen to hide secrets in America. But as any veteran of the corporate world knows, a company cannot bleed money without also bleeding its most vital asset: its people. Prepare to step into the closed-door boardroom, where the Sussexes' dictatorial structure is about to face a brutal execution from the very women who once held the keys to their empire. The most telling sign of a collapsing empire isn't found in a bank statement. It is found in the empty chairs of the boardroom. While the Sussexes were busy polishing their public image, a transatlantic human resources crisis was quietly dismantling their credibility. This phenomenon, which industry experts are now calling HR hemorrhaging, is the direct result of a leadership style that prioritizes the ego over the mission. High-level professionals are not just leaving, they are fleeing to protect their own reputations from the toxic fallout of the Sussex brand. The first major fracture appeared in March 2025 with Invictus, the charity Prince Harry co-founded to help children with HIV in Africa. In a move that shocked the philanthropic world, Harry was effectively forced out of his role as patron. The decision followed a comprehensive brand audit conducted by the charity's chair, Dr. Sophie Chandauka. Her findings were a devastating indictment of the Sussexes' media strategy. The audit concluded that the Netflix docuseries and the memoir Spare had fundamentally poisoned relationships with major donors. But the financial damage was only the beginning. Behind closed doors, the human cost was even higher. Dr. Chandauka reportedly described Harry's conduct during the final months of his tenure as harassment and bullying at scale. A former staffer recounted a moment where the pressure for total loyalty to the Duke's personal narrative superseded the actual needs of the children they were serving. One internal report quoted an executive saying, "We are no longer a charity for HIV. We are a support system for a royal grievance. And the staff is paying the price in blood and tears." The exodus then crossed the ocean to the United Kingdom. Melanie Poole, a woman with a towering reputation in the British legal and charitable sectors, had been appointed as the vice president of the Birmingham 2027 Games. Her tenure lasted exactly 16 months. She reportedly decided to resign because she refused to tether her professional legacy to a brand she described as terminally ill. When a colleague asked why she was leaving so close to the event, Poole reportedly replied, "I came here to serve veterans, not to act as a production assistant for a celebrity reality show." Her departure was a signal to the entire industry. The Birmingham Games were no longer a stable investment. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Archwell Foundation has entered a state of total administrative isolation. Charity Watch, the most respected watchdog in America, has issued 3 separate formal requests for an independent audit over the past 2 years. The Sussexes have ignored every single one. The silence led Charity Watch to issue a public warning that sent ripples through the American nonprofit sector. Their statement revealed a terrifying truth. The board of directors at Archwell consists of exactly 2 people, Harry and Meghan. This is a corporate structure that ignores every principle of risk management. In a 2-person board, there is no oversight, no dissenting voice, and no accountability. An independent governance expert noted, "A 2-person board is not a charity, it's a private bank account with a tax-exempt status." By refusing to allow outside auditors to verify their spending, the Sussexes have effectively declared themselves above the rules of global philanthropy. A 2-person board managing its own money while refusing international auditors. That is no longer corporate governance. It is a solitary bubble waiting for the moment of impact. And if you think the flight of these high-powered directors was the peak of the crisis, just look at the final mathematical verdict coming from the empty seats at the world's largest financial corporations. The dominoes are no longer falling. They are being pushed. The ultimate strategic failure of Harry and Meghan was the belief that the fleeting currency of global celebrity could intimidate the permanent machinery of the state. They attempted to use star power to dictate terms to governments and multi-billion-dollar corporations. By May of 2026, those institutions delivered an administrative checkmate that has effectively frozen the Sussex empire in its tracks. The world is now watching a domino effect of divestment, where the Invictus brand is being treated as a radioactive asset. The first major domino to fall was Boeing. On May the 4th, 2026, the aerospace titan released a terse, 3-sentence statement confirming it was terminating its sponsorship of the Birmingham 2027 Games and withdrawing all financial support from the Invictus Foundation. To Boeing, the risk was no longer worth the reward. As one corporate risk analyst reportedly explained to the board, "We are in the business of aviation and engineering. We cannot allow our brand to be tethered to a charitable structure that is currently a legal lightning rod." For Boeing, the decision was about reputational preservation. The second blow came from across the globe, should a move that demonstrated the surgical precision of state power. Just minutes before the official national budget was unveiled, the Australian government announced it was cutting the entire $9 million allocation for Invictus Australia. In a move of brilliant political nuance, the government simultaneously announced a massive increase in funding for veteran suicide prevention and mental health services. The message was devastatingly clear. Australia is not abandoning its veterans. It is simply abandoning Prince Harry. A high-ranking official in Canberra was reportedly heard summarizing the decision to a colleague, saying, "The veterans are the priority, but the vehicle carrying them has become too expensive and too unpredictable. We are cutting the middleman to save the mission." This leads us to the fatal arithmetic of the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year. This is where the optics manufacturing finally collides with the cold reality of the ledger. During this period, the foundation's total income actually rose by 41%. On the surface, it looked like a success. But the deep audit reveals a dark redistribution of those funds. Direct grants and financial support touching the lives of actual soldiers plummeted by 63%, dropping from £534,973 to just £200,328. Where did that money go? While the soldiers saw their support slashed, the foundation's legal fees exploded by 233%, rising from £45,000 to £150,000 in a single year. The charity's coffers are being drained to fund a six-figure executive machine and, more controversially, to provide a legal war chest for the couple's private media litigations. An independent auditor reportedly described the filing as the financial signature of a private entity masquerading as a public charity. The final verdict on the Sussex era isn't about their titles. It's about their choices. They took a legacy of honor and attempted to turn it into a commercial franchise, only to find that the market for traded honor eventually collapses. The black ink on the government contracts and the empty seats in the donor lounges are the final chapters of this audit. If you want to see the original documents and stay updated as we track the final collapse of the Birmingham 2027 budget, please support our work. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Royal Audit, and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive. We want to hear from you in the comments. Can the Invictus Games survive without Harry and Meghan? Or is the brand now permanently damaged? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next audit.